We have some huge news to go over today as Jeff Passan, the most notable MLB insider, has dropped some huge information surrounding the Toronto Blue Jays and their free agency pursuit of one particular player that is absolutely electric. We're going to break down exactly what this report is and discuss what it means going forward. But not only that, we do have a ton of other updates to go over today and what's going to be a crazy week of free agency and trades. Stay tuned for all that, as well as one thing that no one is talking about going on behind the scenes as it pertains to the Jays recruiting Kyle Tucker, which is pretty unbelievable. I mean, a ton to go around this episode, folks, but before we get into it all, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, you guys are an absolute beast for the support. It truly means the world to me. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot to go over today. Now, obviously, we're approaching December. Of course, the winter meetings happen in December. We had the Vegas meetings happen, and all these different things that are going on in the Jays are heavily involved in multiple players. But let's dive into a new article by Jeff Passan. Now, I want to start with this here. So this was from a little bit ago, pretty recently, and Jeff Passan goes on to say, with GM's meetings underway and winter off to its typically slow start, moves will be happening between now and the new year. And he goes on to give a little bit of insight and a prediction to a degree of the perfect move for each team. And you can see here the best fits as well for each team. And he goes for the Jays. We know they lost in the World Series. And he goes, even with a number of players from the team that pushed the Dodgers to their limit headed to free agency, Toronto returns an excellent core that could use another bat, particularly if Bichette departs. He goes on to say they have money. They have a great clubhouse. After trying in free agency for Shohei, Juan Soto, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, giving Vladdy all the money, signed free agent outfielder Kyle Tucker is his perfect move for the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, we know there's been a ton of smoke surrounding Kyle Tucker and the Jays. And anytime Jeff Passan, drops these articles, of course, he's predicting, a bunch of different things. But at this point, this is, of course, the perfect move for each team. So he's not necessarily saying that he believes the Jays are favorites, but there has been so much reporting, whether that be Bob Nightingale noting that the Jays are favorites for Kyle Tucker. Jeff Passan, he could have went with signed Bichette as the easiest option. He could have went for a bunch of other alternatives. He went for the one that hits the hardest in Kyle Tucker. But this is extremely exciting. Now, you pair this with a new report that dropped recently as well. I believe this one was from Bob Nightingale. But I mean, we think back to when the Jays lost the World Series, and I made a video. One of the first videos after it was from Jeff Passan discussing from John Heyman discussing how the Jays should be seen as early favorites to sign Kyle Tucker. Another report from Bob Nightingale. The Blue Jays will be linked to every marquee free agent and could be in play for both Bichette, Kyle Tucker, and of course, they're going to be in play for a lot of the starting pitchers, Tetsuya Imai, Framber Valdez, and Ranger Suarez. And the more that you look at a lot of these new reports that are dropping, and of course, with the GM meetings in Vegas, there was a lot of different things that were happening, whether that be specifically the fact that the Jays are going to be all in on a lot of different areas, whether that be Ben Nicholson-Smith coming out and saying the starting pitching market's going to move quicker. We know they're involved in a ton of different players. For Jeff Passan himself to note the Jays, their perfect move being Kyle Tucker is very notable. And you look at some of the agents themselves we know Scott Boras. He's been familiar with the Jays. Of course, he represents Max Scherzer. He went on to say Toronto is one of the top 4, top 5 major markets in the league. And I think we'll see the ownership commit and every behavior supports and advance that. Every behavior to support and advance that. And folks, I want the behavior of ownership to be go all in. Now, I do want to dive into a couple different things here because we do have some updates and a ton of different things. But before I dive into some interesting notes here, let's just look at Kyle Tucker. I've done it a couple times. He is an elite player, and there's been some polls on Twitter. Who would you rather? And even in my live streams, who would you rather? If you had to pick one, bring Bichette back, no Tucker, or get Tucker, no Bichette back. Let me know down below in the comments right now. Comment down below. Would you rather option A, you bring Bichette back, you let Kyle Tucker, and you don't get Kyle Tucker, or option B, where you get Kyle Tucker and you let Bichette walk? Leave your option down below. I'll heart every single one in the comments because I want to see what you guys have to say. Now, there's been some interesting movement already. The Mariners yesterday night kind of dropped the first big bombshell of free agency as they signed Josh Naylor to a 5-year deal. Now, this is a pretty big one. Reports are between 90 and 100 million. As of the time of recording, there's no exact number from Jeff Passan, at least. It could have come out early this morning, or could come out early this morning and things like that. But as of now, there's no exact number. But this is opening what we hope is going to be opening the floodgates for the Toronto Blue Jays and everybody in free agency, because Josh Naylor was actually a name the Jays had their eyes out on. At least a lot of fans had their eyes out on. And people are saying, okay, now that Josh Naylor extended, of course, he was traded to the Mariners at the deadline. extend Bo Bichette. And I do ultimately think the first order of business is going to be a starting pitcher. We talk about Bo Bichette a lot, and Bo Bichette is going to be, I think, extended at this point, but it's going to be later on in the offseason, specifically because of the fact that at this juncture, at least, all reports indicate that Bo's going to be, probably returning, but later on in the offseason. Now, we've also had some help from our good friend Miles Straw. He's been recruiting Kyle Tucker. He used to play with him back in Houston, if you remember, and he's good friends with Kyle Tucker, apparently. And of course, Kyle Tucker, you can see there a bunch of different tweets. Miles putting in the work, and it was an Instagram post about their new child. And Miles Straw goes in the comments and let's go. Now come to the Jays, and he'll help babysit. So Miles Straw is an absolute beast, right? We love him. He's a fan favorite. But unironically, stuff like this matters. Like having friends in the team, having somebody, if let's say Kyle Tucker has 3 offers, Dodgers, let's throw out their Yankees, though reports are that they're not going to go after Tucker heavily, and then the Blue Jays. If he's picking between these guys, I'm sure he knows a lot of people across the MLB. Having close friends that know the city with the way that the vibe is right now, I mean, the vibe is at an all-time high, and Jeff Passan talks about it himself in this, move, in this article rather, about the move. These things matter a lot, and there's a reason the Dodgers get guys like Ohtani, started with Ohtani, then Yamamoto, then Roki Sasaki, right? Familiarity and comfortability is crucial, but that's also working in the Jays' favor now, which you love to see it from Miles Straw, and it just makes you feel good inside when you have things like that. I'm really starting to believe, unironically, that Kyle Tucker has a real shot of coming to the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, will it be Bo and Tucker? That would be wishful thinking. Ben Nicholson-Smith, of course, said on the JD Bunker show, I believe it was a week or so ago, that both of those probably aren't going to happen, though he's been wrong before, right? And at this point, it's going to be quite the interesting, thing to think about if you can get both of them. But either way, one or the other, for those wondering, I'm kind of happy with either. I do think Kyle Tucker is a better overall player than Bo Bichette. He's a better defender. You could argue. I think he is a better hitter overall, but even that's a stretch. Bo's one of the best hitters in the MLB. So they're both great. The vibes, though, of Bo and Vladdy, I think that's why why most people lean towards Bichette, though I'm curious to see what you guys think about it in the comment section. And you can see here, the projections. Now, this is, of course, just a Twitter account giving his kind of hilarious, not prediction, but his wishful list. Bo, Tucker, Showtop, Pete Fairbanks. This would be an A++++ offseason. But the predictions earlier, 10 years, 400 million for Kyle Tucker, a ton of money. But the Jays have the money to do that. They have the money to go ahead and do all of this before the 2027 lockout, if that is to happen with the salary floor, salary cap, whatever ends up happening, if not both. It's going to be interesting. But Josh Naylor broke the ice. You're up, Bo. And I think this is the beginning of, like Jeff Passan says, between now and New Year's, but specifically over the next few weeks, the floodgates opening for a lot of the relievers. I think that's going to happen first. But man, has Kyle Tucker to the Toronto Blue Jays just got that much more real.